hijacked, or people have included in it way more than what was originally intended by the likes of Imam Ahmad, by the likes of Al-Laka'i, then there's a need to add a statement or clarification, whether it be the word Salafi, whether it be the word Athari, people of the Athar, people who follow the reports, whether it be by a long explanation, by saying, when I say Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, I mean, I'm not an Ash'ari, I'm not a Sufi, I'm not a Khariji, I'm not a Murji'i. That's a very long explanation. Right? So there's a need sometimes to make a long explanation, like this time right now, because perhaps there's some confusion about why would someone use the word Salafi. And I'm not saying we have to use the word Salafi, but if you've understood what's preceded, you have arrived to the fact that we need further clarification beyond saying we're Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in this time. Is that clear? So then the word Salafi itself is not an obligation on a person to say he is Salafi. However, he's required to distinguish himself from the groups that are astray. Alayhi salatu wasalam.
That's the easy way to say. But associating yourself to the hizb and saying that I'm a Salafi is a contradiction for the term when Prophet Muhammad said,
Alayhi salatu wasalam.
It's a clear contradiction when we label ourselves, basically. It's giving a label. So labeling or associating or getting grouped into it. I'm not saying there is Jamaat Islam. I'm not saying that forming an organization is wrong. There is two different issues. Forming an organization and associating yourself with a party, these are two different things. It might be permissible to form an organization and to work for that organization, whatever the agenda they have. But when somebody asks you, what are you? What kind of Muslim you are? I adhere to the Sunnah of the Prophet
Alayhi salatu wasalam. I have to finish my class, Akhi. I appreciate the discussion. In general, we'll talk about the importance of a person using the word Salafi, or the lack. We're not able to say the person who calls himself Salafi has basically joined a group or has identified himself as being a member of a sect and has been the cause for differing amongst the ummah. We're not able to say that, because if you've understood what I've said, then you have to take that same finger and point it towards Imam Ahmad and Al-Laka'i and Al-Ajurri, who came up with the word Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in a time when that word wasn't known. The reason was to make a distinction, right? And there's no text behind the phrase Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and there's no text behind the word Salafi. And I mentioned to you as well the word Athari, or Ahl al-Hadith, or al-Filqat al-Najiyah, or al-Ta'ifat al-Mansura, or any word that you use. Short explanation, and I mentioned to you the difference between the need for a short explanation and using a quick word. Some instances require that. You can't give a long explanation. Other instances require a long explanation. So what you say is, when you're asked, what are you? You don't like when someone would put you on the spot and you just have to give a one-word answer as a Muslim. You don't like that. And I understand where you're coming from, because that would lead someone, in many cases, to put you in one of those groups. Right? And that would not fulfill the purpose of you labeling yourself with a name or mentioning your ascription to the book and the Sunnah using that word. So many times using that quick word Salafi, it doesn't benefit a person, because the message is not understood by the person who's being addressed. So then what's obligatory then is that you do your best to distinguish yourself from those stray groups. Whether it's, if the word, use the word Salafi, amongst people who understand the context of the word, that it's another step and another word that the people have used to distinguish themselves from the astray groups. If that's understood by the people you're speaking to, then use the word Salafi. If the word is if you're in a place like Pakistan or India, and the word they understand is Ahl Hadith, not the people who make tawaf around the graves, not the people who call on the saints, but Ahl Hadith, then use the word Ahl Hadith. If you're in a place where the people called Ahl al-Athar, the people of the narrations, and they understand when you say you're from Ahl al-Athar, you're not the people who call on the saints, you're not the people who commit acts of shirk, you're not the people who join together in dhikr circles and dance and sing. You're from the people who stick to the narrations. So then each station or each possible way, when you encounter someone, you need to basically clarify your distinction as a follower, as you have said, of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the understanding of the Sahaba and the early Imams. If you can clarify that clearly to the person, that's the maqsood, and that's what's intended, and that's what's